After nearly a decade in office, Congressman Dennis Cardoza has had enough. The California Democrat is stepping down next year, but not before telling everyone exactly what's on his mind. Congressman Dennis Cardoza joins me live now. And Congressman, your retirement statement was a litany of, I would say, you seem to venting some frustration that you had about this town, the media, Democratic politics, the Obama administration, Republican politics. And it started with housing. Today, the president's rolling out a new housing plan. What do you think?
Well, thank you for having me on, Chuck, and I've enjoyed my service in Congress. With regard to the president's housing proposal, I'm very concerned that it's more of the same. Now, he's taking some initiatives that we had a Home Act bill that I put forward that would allow Americans to refinance. And he's taking some snippets of that bill, eliminating the appraisal requirement and some other things I think are beneficial. But there's been far too little. It's taken far too long. We proposed in 2009, January 2009, this proposal, and it's just now starting to get some traction. We met with Mr. DeMarco, the administration's point person on this, and he says, well, maybe 800,000 more refinances, when the problem is 11 million. It's still not
800,000. I mean, let's talk about your district in Central California, Central Valley. Dramatically, it's been hit very hard on foreclosures. I mean, so 800,000. How many are supposedly could benefit from this plan in your district?
Almost none, because people are so far underwater in my district, they can't crawl out. The banks aren't cooperating. The current proposal is up to 125% of loan-to-value ratio, but only a small percentage has been over 105%.
Right.
The banks just don't cooperate.
So we see the number 125%, and they may raise it to 130, 135%, but banks are only refinancing essentially if they think, oh, maybe we'll get our money back sometime.
That's right. There's 70% of the houses in my congressional area, in the valley I live in, are underwater. And they're substantially underwater. 30% of my folks have lost their house. In the Great Depression, only 25% of Americans, or 27% of Americans lost their house. For my area, we've already lived through the Depression.
You're in a new depression.
We're in a new depression.
This is a depression, not a Great Recession. So why are you leaving Congress? There's a lot of work to be done. Your district's hurting. Isn't this the time you say, it's hurting, I'm mad, and you know what, I'm not going to take it anymore, and I'm going to stay?
Well, a lot of my constituents would like me to do exactly that, and I understand that sentiment. The reality is I looked around and I didn't find any partners that were willing to move forward. Got the Tea Party that's taken the Republicans far to the right. We lost 68 moderates in the last election. America's begging for the moderate.
You didn't vote for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, so you obviously had some issues with her leadership, did you?
I do have some issues, but I'll tell you, I have tremendous respect for Nancy. She is a tremendously tough fighter and believes in what she's doing, and we have a good relationship. But I couldn't stand by and not acknowledge that 68 of my moderate colleagues, that I believe is where America should go, in the middle and trying to cooperate and bring the parties together, they lost, and there wasn't really soul searching that had happened that asked, why did those folks lose? What is the right direction for America?
So by leaving, though, then you become 69.
Well, I'll tell you, I plan to stay involved. I think for the next few years, there's going to be a better place for a better voice outside of Congress than inside. The screaming that's going on inside should be treated very harshly by the voters, in my opinion. People who scream don't have answers for where America ought to go. And I'm frustrated. You're right. I've done it for almost 20 years,
right.
Local, 10 state, and federal.
California.
A lot of the reasons why I'm leaving are personal. I want good people to come forward and run for office, and I'll be there to support them from the outside.
You were pretty critical of us in the media.
I was.
Bring it on.
Well,
no.
And thank you for the opportunity. The Blue Dogs that I'm a member of have been saying for 15 years that we should get the deficit under control. And if they had listened, if folks had listened and understood what we were talking about all that time leading up, we could have taken care of this crisis long before it got to be the crisis that it is today. We should have been working on deficit reduction long ago, not only when it really comes to face. So there needs to be a focus on those politicians who are thinking about how do we solve problems, who are engaging in constructive dialogue, not pounding the podium and screaming every day. And that seems to be what gets the attention in the media.
And if you have some advice for President Obama in his re-election, considering that you believe he's charted a course that's off the reservation here, what would it be?
I think he needs to really focus on what's happening on Main Street America. He needs to walk up and down the small towns that I represent, or towns like mine, and talk to shopkeepers and let them tell him directly how difficult it is to do business in America these days and what they think needs to be done. I got to tell you, the regulatory reform issues that my folks tell me about are real. The criticism that the Republicans say about it's too tough to do business in this country, they're right about that. We need to figure out how to make it easier on them. He also needs to say, look, we're not going to engage in this rhetoric. I actually like what he's doing right now. We can't wait tour. I'm all about that. We can't wait for more of the same.
Right.
We need change. We need the vision that he originally laid out, not what his administration has done the last 2 years.
Congressman Dennis Cardoza, Democrat from the Central Valley in California. Good luck.